Joining me now is the Shadow Home Office Minister, Matt Vickers. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Do you support this step?
Do you know what? If there's one thing the great British public have learned in the last 9 months, it's not to believe a thing that Labour say in the run-up to an election. Ask the pensioners, ask the farmers, ask the small business people. In fact, ask every council taxpayer in the land who was promised by Keir Starmer not a penny more on council tax this year. The people that are getting increases of 10%. It's ridiculous. But actually, you should believe what they do, not what they say. And a few weeks ago, the Labour Party had the chance to vote on measures to do exactly this. A measure that would remove the need for a 12-month sanction on offence. We said that people who commit an offence, a foreign offender, should be removed. If you arrive here illegally, you commit an offence, you should be removed regardless of whether that offence carries a 12-month sanction. But then on top of that, as Yvette Cooper well knows, most of these things will end up in the courts with wranglings about the Human Rights Act. We saw Chicken Nugget Gate, we saw the case of the paedophile who couldn't be deported because it was feared that he'd face hostility in his own country. Yvette Cooper knows these things get tied up by the Human Rights Act. We had an amendment in Parliament to remove the Human Rights Act, disapply it from all cases relating to immigration and deportations like this. The Labour Party voted against it. Judge them by their actions, not their words, and particularly not the words that come out of the mouth in the run-up to a local election.
There's a lot there that you've mentioned. I guess it comes down to, and I had a similar discussion back and forth with the Home Secretary last hour, as to whether or not you want to remove the ability for the ECHR and the HRA to get involved in these areas. Are you saying you would pull out of the ECHR?
We've said that we would disapply the Human Rights Act to all immigration and deportation cases. And we would also take away any interim judgments from Strasbourg, which means you couldn't get tied up. If it was immigration, if it was related to a deportation like this, the laws, as decided by Parliament, the people who are elected to decide them in this country, would hold. They would not be overturned by Chicken Nugget Gate and similar.
But is that the same as removing yourself from the ECHR?
It's not exactly the same. That's a debate that will come forward. But this would solve this problem. It would allow us to...
No, but this is interesting because what you're saying is that the announcement today, the intention that was very clear, wouldn't necessarily have effect because the courts would hold things up. But what you're not saying that your party would do is that you would not pull out of the ECHR, but many people would therefore continue to say that the courts would therefore still hold things up. So, you can't sort of criticise...
They wouldn't. That's a fact. So I'm sure we'll have the debate about the ECHR going forward. But what we are saying is we would disapply the Human Rights Act from everything relating to immigration, including interim judgments from Strasbourg, meaning they could not be prevented from deporting people. The outcome is that these people would still be deported after the judgment from our own domestic courts.
But so what would Strasbourg say to that? If the ECHR still applies, but you're saying... If it still has jurisdiction, but you're saying, oh, but it doesn't apply in this area, what are they likely to say?
We're making it black and white. We would legislate. If Labour had decided to vote for that amendment, 2 amendments there, the first one being you shouldn't have to wait for a sanction to be more than 12 months, the second being the disapplication of the human rights. Both of those would do the business in ensuring that the courts could not frustrate this situation. It's actually, the vast majority of these cases, our own courts making decisions based on the Human Rights Act and the way that they've worked that back from the ECHR.
Why do you not do that when you're in government?
Do you know what? We're under new leadership. I wasn't a minister in the last government. Kemi wasn't the leader of our party in the last government. We've looked at this. We've looked at what the British people feel and have to say about it. We've also looked at the increasing number of ridiculous cases, like Chicken Nugget Gate, like a paedophile who can't be deported because he'd face hostility in his own country. That is madness. That is not acceptable. We cannot allow these cases to keep coming out with these outcomes time and time again in ever-increasing number. It is not acceptable. The Labour Party did not vote with those measures that could have solved this problem.
But just to be clear, whereas Reform say that they would leave the ECHR, you're not saying that?
Reform say lots and lots of things to lots of different people at lots of different times. We've given...
they've been very clear about that.
Well, let's just talk about this bill that had these 2 amendments on where we had the chance to change the law. Reform didn't even contribute to the debate. They didn't come to Parliament to discuss the border security bill, the bill that was determining the way we deal with border security and immigration in this country. They didn't attend. They didn't contribute to the debate. They had nothing to say. It's all well and good saying it on Twitter. It's all well and good having a chat with you. But there was an opportunity in there to change the law, to change the outcome for the great British public and the consequences of this broken immigration system.
Well, that's fine. I'm just clarifying that your policy is not to withdraw from the ECHR. In terms of the latest that we've just seen in Canada overnight, do you think it suggests this extraordinary political comeback from Mark Carney the Liberal Party, that as a country we should be slightly more combative back to Donald Trump as opposed to conciliatory?
I think, do you know what? America is a great partner to us in terms of defence, in terms of trade. Lots of opportunities there. I know that we've had some diplomatic messes with members of the current government who said some of the wrong things about that administration that didn't get us off on the best footing. But actually, we should be working more closely with the US. We should be looking for that free trade agreement. We saw progress on it when Trump was last in office with the previous government. It all got poo-pooed when Biden came along. We got memorandums of understanding in place with different states across the US. Huge benefits to this country in terms of trade, huge benefits in terms of our economic outlook. That's what we should be doing. We should be pulling up a chair, getting around that table and working on a relationship that benefits us and the US.
So similar approach as is currently employed by the Prime Minister?
Well, perhaps, but we want him to see it doing it with a bit more rigour and perhaps being a little bit less offensive to leaders of those other major partners of ours.
Matt Vickers, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.